Hello and welcome back. I'm Randy Bueller, and I'm joined by the victorious Rodrigo Tagores. Nice job.
Thank you.
Now,
It was
tell me your
great.
deck is real. Tell me about this deck, and tell me why I'm going to be allowed to play with Mana Drains and Torrential Gearhulks now.
Okay, in my group of friends, there is one player that's called Jaime Cano, and he builds like lots of decks. He's like the deck mastermind. And
Okay.
this is a new made version of a deck that was already played in the Winter Super League, but not by Bob, by someone other. That was a deck that is with Chain of Mephistopheles and Darkfiden.
Oh, it's the 2 Chains deck that Williams played.
Yeah, this deck is from a guy that plays in our monthly event. He plays it like 2 years, since 2 years.
Okay.
So the deck just evolved, and the problem with this is that the deck played Abrupt Decay and Lying Means as removal, and now against the Eldrasis, that's not so good. And also not having Chains, having Leovold, because it's a great card. The Darkfiden is also not so good because you make him draw 1 card and discard 2, while with Chains they draw 0 and discard 2, so you just can't get to him in every turn with Jason out with Darkfiden and Chains. So that is just the latest version. I was making the last changes on Christmas, and I take out a bit of Dredgehead because it should play 1 more Rest in Peace and 1 more Nihil Spellbomb. But yeah, I don't expect that Dredge, but was fearing that someone played, in fact, Dredge against the deck.
All right, so now, I get where the deck came from, but what led you to believe Leovold was the right answer to Vintage nowadays? What's the case for this deck?
I think Leovold is not a great card in Legacy, even if Ray Duke won the Legacy GP with it last weekend.
Okay.
But in Vintage, it's much more difficult to kill and much easier to defend, like with Mental Misstep.
Okay.
And you get to draw lots of cards. Every time they Gitaxian you, it's like your opponent draws 1 card and they get nothing. Just see your hand. All the Gushes, Preordains, all these cards that you want to play, they are not good against Leovold. And even if they want to kill them, they have to use like 4 mana for Verdict, or you get a card. And just you grind them to death. So it's a hard control deck. And the nice inclusion of Torrential Gearhulk was that my friend played it in an event, and the problem was that sometimes the deck didn't close the game really fast because Leovold is slow, Snapcaster is slow, Jace is slow, but having just a 5/5 beater, a 5/6 beater.
Also, you're only allowed to play 4 copies of Snapcaster Mage. You're already maxed on the Snapcaster, so
yeah. So the deck is called Snap Control. And also the best play you can make is like dig through time, Leovold, dig through time. Like, hey, that happens quite a bit.
So I guess the flaw with the deck, if there is one, has got to be the mana, right? You're fully 4 color. We saw Mana Confluence and a fetch land mana base.
Also, the mana works pretty good. You play 24 sources. The problem is I don't draw many lands, but you should. And also, you have not a lot of cost that cost a lot. Sometimes you need like the back colors and you can't cast Leovold. But usually it doesn't happen. Also, if you have 3 lands, it's very strange that you don't have all 4 colors. Or at least you can survive until.
All right. Like I said, I'm rooting for this to be a real deck because the idea of playing 4 Snapcasters, Mana Drains, like it's a very grindy control deck. I mean, it's a control deck first. It's definitely got some grinds to it too with all the 2-for-1s with the Snapcasters. All right, but we'll get another peek in at you and your Snapcaster control deck in the next match where you'll be playing against Rachel for a spot in the Vintage Super League. First, though, we are going to drop down to the losers bracket. We're going to look at Caleb Durward once again, and Steve Menendian with his Doomsday deck. Let's get down to that match. Hello and welcome to round 3. Caleb Durward with his Emrakul deck. Land still, Moat in the main, Emrakul the Promised End for the win. But none of that is particularly what he's going to want in this matchup. Steve Menendian has his trademark Doomsday deck. Doomsday is the deck that got Steve back into the VSL last year when he got relegated as part of a mass tie. Not doing so well for him so far. We'll see how this plays out. So do you have any opinions on how this matchup should play, Rodrigo?
So Caleb should just try to stall out until the late game and get some min break traps, because at least when I'm playing Doomsday against control decks, if you don't have an explosive hand, to just try to grab tendrils and brute force the tendrils through his cards. But depends. Right now, none of them is really good on cards, but drawing the land from Steve, I think, will give him an edge. Now he can demonic for Gush.
That was going to be my next question. What do you get? Ancestral? Gush?
I will not get Ancestral. I think you need a card really, and maybe a Gush is much stronger. Yeah,
that's what he gets. Makes sense.
Because no one counters a Gush if they don't know what you are doing. Also, he didn't miss a land drop, so
yeah. And Ancestral obviously has the drawback of being a 1 converted mana cost card. We can see 3 different copies of Mental Misstep in Caleb's hand. So
I don't like Mental Misstep in Vintage. It's a card that I think it should be restricted. It makes most games unfun.
Oh, you don't like the fact that it exists?
Yeah, so I am of the idea that Gush and Mental Misstep should be restricted, just to make Mat not so strong, because Gush makes the Mat deck stronger because you play less lands and you play, and your main engine is to put cards back in your hand. So the Thorn decks are stronger just because of this.
Yeah, I think you can make a case for Gitaxian Probe as well, as a card that is very efficient and leads people to play fewer lands in their blue decks. But same basic idea. Oh, would you see a little peek there? Is that notepad coming out? I don't know if anybody's playing Stephen Menendian in the drinking game, but he's got black floating from the Gush. He's got a land drop, so this could be Underground Sea into Doomsday if he wants to go that direction. He will not have a way to bootstrap his way into the pile, though. So this is one of those hands where if this Doomsday resolves, he's going to have to say go.
I will better say that I will more likely have let the Doomsday counter it. I think it was his main plan. But it doesn't resolve.
He was hoping Doomsday would get counterspelled here. I agree with you. It's not gonna, though. It's gonna resolve.
No. The problem is that depending on the pile, so I think you have to discard that he has like Flusterstorm or Fossil Will.
Oh,
so
if he goes for a Lab Maniac pile, he's going to get destroyed by 2 copies of Swords to Plowshares, isn't he?
No.
Or how much permission? Does Steve actually have enough permission to fend off all of that?
Depending how he does it, if he Mental Missteps the Swords to Plowshares, he will not be able to counter everything. But if he the first problem with this pile is that the Ancestral is not going to resolve.
Right.
Like never ever. But
and you can actually see Steve flipping over. The players do now have each other's deck lists. So what he's doing right now is he's looking at Caleb's main deck and trying to make sure he understands what's in there. You know, once the decks have been on camera once, we don't want people to have to watch the sideboarding and squint. So we do show, let the players have access to each other's deck lists starting with this round 3. So Steve can put Ancestral on top, figuring he uses his draw step to draw the Ancestral, and then hopefully uses the Ancestral to draw the rest of things.
So the Ancestral is going to resolve.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. I agree with you. Even if Caleb does mental misstep it, well, Steve's draw step is eventually going to draw him everything because Caleb's not actually doing anything right now. Caleb is basically all in on being able to source to Plowshares a Lab Maniac.
So I think Steve's plan after the Ancestral is countered is just to drop the Maniac, play a Probe, and then Gush into the pile. If he, I don't know if this is gonna. Depends on the pile.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I feel like this is gonna be tight. It is. Steve's definitely guarding against Swords to Plowshares. That is a card that he knows is in Caleb's list, that he knows he has to worry about. There's 3 swords in Caleb's main deck, so I mean the odds of him having 2 are not super high. I don't know if Steve is going to play around the second one. Wow, so he gets Underground Sea. Oh, he has to. Yeah, he needs a 3rd land. Interesting. He took Underground Sea so that he's not dependent on Black Lotus mana to cast his Maniac.
Yeah, and also not dependent on maybe Caleb starts wastelanding him.
Yeah, good point.
Also, he can fetch for the Underground with its Mystery and Forest.
Excellent point. He can thin his library by 1. So there's the pile. Steve has resolved Doomsday. His deck has been exiled except for the 5 cards of his choice. He's down to 9 life. But he has to say go and then hope things are still looking good when he gets the turn back. All right. What is Caleb going to draw? Standstill. Wow. That is a very relevant card.
Also, he could play the Standstill and the Explosives and make Steve draw his deck. That's he draws 3. He's 1 card short, but
so you want him to trigger his own Standstill and try to deck Menendian? That's your line here? That's awesome. I don't think it's good. Not when there's 5 cards in Steve's library, but it's amusing. Could come up after they fight over this Ancestral.
So I have seen quite a few times deck Dredge with Standstill. Like they Standstill deck them because they were just all in on 2 cards or so.
Sure.
But
yeah,
I think the best plan is to make nothing here and just wait and try to stall the game.
Yeah, he actually does have a decision to make in, does he leave up 2 copies of Swords to Plowshares or does he tap out for Standstill? And I think I agree with you and Caleb, which is don't cast the Standstill, leave up 2 mana so that he can plow twice.
Yeah, so usually it's really difficult to make a pass the turn pile with Doomsday. That doesn't require Laboratory Maniac. Yeah, sometimes you can do if you have strong hands, but not at this early in the game.
All right, Steve has thinned the Underground out of his deck, so he's trying to draw all 3 of the cards in his deck. This has got to be Mental Misstep. Right?
So I will Mental Misstep because maybe you never get another chance to misstep something.
I agree with you, but that's not how Caleb plays it. Yeah, Black Lotus Lab Maniac Gush kills him without ever being a mental misstep target. I guess Caleb is just saving his missteps to defend the plows from potential missteps out of Menendian.
I don't think that's a great plan. Because
also, Caleb no longer has a way to trigger his own Standstill, but that's okay.
Yeah, so playing the Explosives there, I think it's not really great.
Yeah, he's threatening to blow up a Black Lotus, which might be relevant. All right. Menendian has played his Lab Maniac. This Gitaxian Probe will kill Caleb if it resolves. And the way Steve's played this is kind of clever. He's actually got a Gush that he can respond to something like Swords to Plowshares with.
With Fluster backup.
Yeah. So missteps are going to cancel out.
Steve is using the misstep.
Well, I mean, if his probe resolves, he just wins.
No, because he can still. So he can still source to plowsters.
No, I understand. He basically Steve has to answer plow. He doesn't actually have to answer the missteps because he can win with a gush.
Yeah,
I guess that's what he's thinking about.
Using the misstep makes him a blue card lower for Fossil's wills.
That's a good point.
That's my. What is he doing?
Seems to me that he can counter with a misstep, a Flusterstorm, and a Force of Will. I think Steve's can counter 3 times here. There's no way he can counter 4, but he gets 3. All right, before the misstep resolves, he's going to go ahead and gush. Now, the way Caleb has slow rolled those plows is actually really good for him now. Gush as a response to Swords to Plowshares could potentially win Steve the game before the plow kills the Maniac. But plow as a response to gush, Steve is obliged to fight.
The problem is he fights with misstep or with Force of Will.
Well, you go misstep first. Yeah, I don't like the way that probe is no longer relevant to the stack because there's a plow on top of it. I'm not sure I like the way Steve sequenced this. Yeah, okay. Caleb missteps back, of course. Menendian is going to Force a Will.
The swords. So Caleb had still a land.
Yeah, Caleb's still got a second plow. And is the
Fluster tops this.
All right. Forces Caleb?
Oh, he forced the misstep, not the plow. Or no.
Interesting.
Whoa.
What difference does it make?
He would have won the game if he doesn't force the misstep. Why not directly forcing the plow?
Let the missteps cancel. What's the difference?
Because
doesn't
now
work out the same?
Caleb has misstep, Steve's misstep. If the force resolves countering the swords, then Caleb cannot misstep back.
Yikes.
He had it, but another swords, and game is over.
That game is over. Menendian is going to lose his Maniac to that last plow, and he's going to wind up decking himself on his next draw step.
For some reason, he ended up using one misstep that he shouldn't, and the one that was for the Ancestral. I would have countered the Ancestral for sure. It's like a time walk for 2 life.
Well, Caleb's play worked out just fine. He thought the fight was going to be all about Swords to Plowshares, and it is tough to sequence a Doomsday deck. It is unforgiving. Menendian finds himself with no library. He's got to resolve a draw spell. You know what? He doesn't actually have to resolve a draw spell either. He can just say go. Like, he can just put his Lab Maniac on the table. What goes wrong if he just says go?
He doesn't. Also, Caleb's untaps and at least has one more draw step. The problem is that you have the Gitaxian Probe, so it's free to go for it in this stage of the game.
That's fair. I think you're right about the Gitaxian Probe, but I feel like because Steve was proactive with his gush, he sort of gave away the ability to win via draw step, and he gave away the ability to gush as a response to a plow, effectively countering the plow.
Yes and no. Also, I think he plays the Gitaxian and then the fight starts. That just you have to think of gush like one more counter.
Right. That's how I think of it.
And then it doesn't matter when you play it. You just have to play it in response to something of your opponent. But
yeah, the biggest mistake I think you pointed out as we went through, Steve used Force of Will on a misstep instead of using Force of Will on the plow itself, which effectively turned on Caleb's last misstep as a relevant counterspell. And that was bad. So Caleb is up a game. Super interesting Magic. Always fun to watch a Doomsday Pilot. And man, building the pile when you have to say go is super tough. I do not envy Steve's position there. Both of these guys will be back next week for the last chance qualifier. There are going to be 6 players left standing with 1 spot on the line when we get to next week. New decks. One of these players hopefully will get a bye. The winner of this will then play for a bye in that LCQ. But they'll both be there. All right, how do these draws
Caleb has a quite fair hand. That's Walk. I don't like really much the Crucible in this matchup, depending on how many cards you have to side in. But it's on the not so good cards, I think. The problem is it's better than like Council Judgment or Explosive or even a Swords to Plowshares. That's... You think Caleb should just Wasteland this turn?
Yes.
So
before Gush is turned on.
I also think so. It's risky, but I think it's because if you wait, then Gush visits it. I don't really like this play, but I know the problem is you time walk both players,
right.
But then they just... It's better than having a card that does nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, let's roll a d6. If he rolls a 1 and he doesn't have a second land, it's great. Otherwise, you just both draw a card and move on with your lives. And in fact, we can see that Menendian did not have a second land. This Vampiric
It's for a land.
It's for Underground Sea, probably? No, he goes for Ancestral. Interesting.
That's greedy.
Yeah. I think he's feeling a little desperate. It's not going to work.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know if it was greed or desperation, but Flusterstorm is going to eat the Ancestral and effectively 2-for-1 Steve, since it countered the Vampiric Tutor in effect.
Also, yeah, maybe.
Go ahead.
At the end, you just trade 1-for-1, but having 2 Gushes, he could just have gotten a land, then Merchant, then Gush again, then Time Walk, then also now until he draws another land.
Yikes!
Nothing is gonna happen.
I think stuff's Nature's Clay with no green mana. That Crucible of Worlds is gonna bring back a Wasteland. Caleb Durward is gonna have Wasteland Recursion with Crucible, and he's gonna be able to land a Standstill here. I hope Steve's looking forward to the LCQ right now. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, so I think not getting the land there was a bit...
Yeah, so you would Vampiric for Underground Sea and turn your Gushes on that way. I agree that your play is safer, but I don't know that safe was the way Steve was going to win this game. I don't think his late game is good. I think he has to gamble that Caleb can't counter his Ancestral. Like, it's at least not a crazy line. I understand why Steve played it that way. I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah, but I still don't like.
Fair enough. It didn't work, that's for sure.
The first plan is just to not lose, and then maybe you win. But that's not a winning line. If it goes right, it's high risk, high reward. But if not, then you are really deep on that.
All right. Well, Steve's trying to blow up that Crucible and get out from under this Wasteland lock. He had to trigger a Standstill, and Caleb got to Brainstorm, but it looks like Nature's Claim is, in fact, going to blow up the Crucible.
Yeah, so Caleb is just going to Wasteland again.
Right. He's just holding Wasteland, Strip Mine, Treasure Cruise, Standstill. No big deal.
Waste, and then you will attack with the Factory?
No, I would cruise and then drop a Standstill.
Yeah, I think too. It's just the safer. More cards.
So much value.
Yeah, so the next plant Steve draws is gonna get Strip Mined. Then, yeah, I think this game is almost over.
Almost. It turns out Caleb's holding a bunch of blanks.
Yeah, so
5 lands, and he still has Plow in his deck after sideboarding? Steve
Also,
has Enchanted Swarms or something?
no, because of Maniac.
He's just going to fight the Maniac? It's so hard to fight the Maniac. I don't know. Do you fight Maniac in this matchup?
Also, you can, depending on the cards. Also, now I'm here at standstill. He has to remove Explosives, Verdict, Council Judgment, Mode, maybe Emrakul. And he doesn't have so many cards. He has like Rest in Peace if he boards it, Stony Silence if he boards it, and Canonist. So he has maximum 4 cards.
Yeah, I see your point. And you're right. The plows do have utility in that sometimes you can actually plow the Maniac post Doomsday. I feel like if they manage to resolve a Doomsday, I'm probably just losing that game. And so I don't want cards in my deck that are only good post Doomsday. That said, we saw it in game 1. It does come up. It does work out.
Yeah, the problem is he doesn't have enough cards to side in. You have just the 2 Canonists, which I think he sided in.
Yeah.
And the Rest in Peace, maybe. Maybe the cages are better, but none of these cards are really good. They are just okay. So you play also graveyard cards.
There you go. Landstill doing what Landstill does. Blow up your lands, drop a standstill, attack with Mishra's Factory. So Caleb gets to play one more match. He's still hoping he can earn himself a bye in the LCQ, but in order to figure out who his opponent is going to be for that bye, we're also going to have to hand out the spot. So tell me about your thoughts coming up in this match against Rachel Agnes.
Also, usually the fast mentor is the worst thing that can happen.
Okay.
But this deck was more or less built to beat mentor and White Eldrazi.
Fair enough.
But always depends. Also, your deck is slower if they get a good start. There was one fact that we thought that it would be good to play more decays against mentor. The problem is they are not really good against Eldrazi's.
Definitely true.
So Sword is good against mentor, but also I would like to have a decay like every day of my life in this situation. Because then you start just you Sword, the mental. You can maybe get rid of the mentor, but maybe there are 2 tokens.
I think you're right. That's interesting, though. That's really the thing that's different about your Leovold list from I think people's first draft. Everyone assumed, Abrupt Decay is, of course, the removal spell you want. If you're going to go to all the trouble of having black and green mana, of course you're going to play Abrupt Decay. It's just the Eldrazi mean all of a sudden Abrupt Decay isn't the removal spell you want. It has to be Swords. It's the other reason Lightning Bolts have kind of left Vintage, because Lightning Bolt is not the removal spell you want against Eldrazi either. Again, you want Swords. All right. Well, now you've got the mentor matchup. So yeah, Swords running into Mental Misstep is not exactly an Abrupt Decay, but we'll see how it plays out. Good luck to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Stay tuned, guys. We're going to be giving away a spot in the Vintage Super League right after these messages.